Welcome back, great people. Welcome back. How are you doing? Welcome back. Hope you had a great weekend. Happy Tuesday, everyone. Happy Tuesday. Well, we had a storm here, but fortunately, it dissipated. So yes, it dissipated, and now we have a radiant, shining sun. So yeah, pretty much. Remember that we are in the middle of the winter, contrary to you guys. Okay, to most of you at least, pretty much. So yes, there we go, and we begin day number three. Day number three of metaphysical analysis of Drakensang online. So let me see that everything is perfect. Here, the camera a bit over there. Okay. Okay, let me put the stream on performance mode. And I wanted to show you this. See that this window that the game opens when you start playing? See that it says the free-to-play action MMORPG. This is a clear example. This is a clear example of even the developers not being able to classify their own game. Not being able to classify their own game, because in terms of the genre classification, we talked about it in the first and second streams, in the first two streams of Drakensang online, pretty much, and because of 5 reasons that I explained last time, I have classified this game as an isometric action RPG, contrary to an MMORPG, because of several 5 reasons that I went in depth across 2 hours last time. For those of you who just discovered the stream over at YouTube and you are watching this as a YouTube Bob, I've already done the genre classification of the game, and now I will start getting into the gameplay mechanics and the level design. I will start analyzing and comparing this isometric action RPG to other isometric action RPG games, not MMORPG games, unless it's an aspect that specifically is related to that, like doing dungeons, group play, etc. Pretty much. Okay. With that out of the way, people, let's get into the story of what we were doing here as a bit of a recap. We started the game over at Grimford here, the original area of the game. And then we proceeded doing the tutorials and pretty much everything until we reached King's Hill in the second stream. No, well, in the first stream, but we started doing the quests in the second stream, pretty much, except for the initial one. And that led us to all of these 4-5 dungeons that we did a lot of quests last time in the previous stream, pretty much. And now our journey has sent us to Werian Sanctuary. I just arrived and received the quests, so let's see what this area has in store for us as we get into the topic of analysis for today. It was the tracker, here we go. We are right now in Act 1, Part 5, and we have 6 side quests that we got last time. Okay, that we got last time as we arrived. By the very end of the stream, when we arrived, we got several side quests. Okay, so looks like we have at least, because it indicates the area, we have at least 4 of those, plus 2 main quests here and here over at Slifmoor, the main dungeon outside of this this new city that we just arrived to, the Werian pastures, or what was it? Werian Warian Sanctuary. Sorry, I called it pasture. And we need to do the quests here over at Slifmoor. So let's begin, people, with the topic of analysis for today. As we begin the topic of analysis for today, which is the early game, gameplay mechanics, and the level design. As I have been mentioning in the previous two streams, first, you always need to do the genre classification so you can establish the direct comparisons with the correct exponents, with the correct representatives, with the correct games that belong to the same genre. So I will begin establishing the comparisons as I do the quests with isometric action RPG games. That was the key of doing the genre classification, of always doing the genre classification, pretty much at the beginning of any analysis. So, in terms of the early game gameplay mechanics, the first evident thing that I highlighted when we started analyzing Drakensang 1 2 streams ago was the physics. The very first thing that I noticed was the weight, specifically the weight of the physics. And by the weight, I mean the impact of the animations, the pace at which the character moves, the fact that the character cannot get through enemies, that enemies have a physical entity to them in the level design plane of the game, in that sense, that you cannot get through enemies. For example, if I do this, see that it's blocking my way. I know it sounds like a very stupid element, but it's essential. First, it was one of the 5 reasons of the genre classification that we did last time, classifying this game as an isometric action RPG instead of an MMORPG. Because of that and other 4 reasons, mainly as well because the source of the difficulty caused by that weight of the physics makes it completely different, because you can be surrounded by enemies and killed, the source of the difficulty, rather than the raw input damage of enemy numbers that would be the main source of difficulty in MMORPGs, right? So that's a huge difference in terms of the source of the difficulty. In isometric action RPG games, think of Diablo, Titan Quest, Grim Dawn, Torchlight, etc. In all of those games, the source of the difficulty does not come from the raw input damage of enemies most of the time. It comes from being surrounded and killed because of that usage of physics that implies that the player is surrounded by enemies and cannot get through them easily. Even if you can teleport, if you can tell me, well, but you can teleport now, Eraser, that you got the other ability, the other skill, and you can actually get through enemies. Well, it's through the use of an ability, and besides, that doesn't fix the fact that you can be still surrounded. Because imagine if I teleport like this, but there's another batch of enemies over there trying to kill me, and I will still get killed. Pretty much. I know all of this sounds maybe a bit evident, but it's essential, because think of World of Warcraft, as I always mention. What would happen in World of Warcraft, or Star Wars New Republic, or whatever, whichever MMORPG you may want to think about in terms of the genre classification? You can get through enemies. They don't have a physical entity, a weight that prevents you from getting through them, basically, and the main source of difficulty being the raw damage that they deal, that the NPCs deal. So there's one of the 5 differences that we commented last time. I won't get into all of them, of course, because the topic of analysis for today, moving on, is the early game gameplay mechanics and the early game level design. Across the next streams, now that we've established the genre classification, we will start making comparisons in the damage system of the game, the mathematics behind the DPS system of the game, how it influences the economy of it, the relationship between the level design and the gameplay mechanics, etc., 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 as we always do. But first, I wanted to wrap up the topic of the previous two streams, of the two initial streams in which we did the genre classification in depth of it with the 5 reasons I gave you. You still have the VOD, and then I will upload it over at YouTube. That this game is an isometric action RPG, not an MMORPG. Why? Because of the 5 reasons that I commented last time. I won't get into them today. You have the VOD there. So the comparisons will be established with Titan Quest, Diablo, Torchlight, Grim Dawn, all of the isometric action RPG games that we know and love, except for the elements that do belong to the MMORPG genre that I also highlighted. Pretty much the group dungeons, the group content, all of the aspects that the game inherits from the MMORPG genre, but that aren't as predominant as the isometric action RPG genre because they don't affect the core gameplay mechanics. Nefertari, I beg thee to give me strength so that I might crush thy enemy. Okay, let's see. Quest guidance is complete. We got that one done right, but we have many more. Speak to the citizen group in which part of group. Ah no, it keeps going. It has 3 phases, people. So, the first element of the early game gameplay mechanics, well, as I've said, the physics are exactly, establishing the first comparison of today, the physics are exactly, they feel exactly like Titan Quest. And why? Why, people? We should always ask ourselves why things happen in life, indeed. As I always mention. Why is it that the physics of this game feel quite similar to Titan Quest instead of Diablo, for example? Diablo 2 I'm talking about. In the case of Diablo 3, for example, see how interesting it is. I mentioned in the first stream that the physics are a bit much more floaty, faster, and hack and slashy, but you still can't get through enemies completely. You get surrounded and killed. Oh, mighty one, tell me what to do, I will give you anything, my body, no, never that. Okay, that's the second one, but we need one more, people. They are worshipping these statues there. So why is it that the physics are so similar to Titan Quest? Well, first of all, we have to address the first talking point that I wanted to bring to you today, which is the shared, inherited physics of isometric action RPG games during the late 2000s. I know it's a very abstract topic, but I bet you will see the point in a matter of seconds. Hang on a sec. Go to the last one. There we go. I wish there was a way to kind of like force the path guidance constantly. I could also use the map. It should indicate all of the objectives since we have so many missions. Yeah, there we go. There you can see the rest of the missions. Okay. In the late 2000s, let's analyze the situation of these physics that I'm commenting with the mindset of the time. One of the greatest scenes of reviewers is analyzing and pretty much a lot of reviewers in general of books and everything is analyzing the aspects of a movie or a book or a game with the lens of the present, and that's a terrible idea because then you are not taking into account the worldview of the time. And in the case of the isometric action RPG genre, in the late 2000s it was still a period of adaptation. Why? Because the transition from 2D to 3D had already been done. Of course, we are talking about the 7th generation, 2008, 2009, 2010. Of course, but still, the adaptation of this genre, hadn't produced a new king, let's say, like Diablo 2 was during the late late 90s, pretty much the year 2000. Diablo 2 was a king and consumed everything around it, and pretty much. But the adaptation to 3D was a quite troubled period of time. In that convoluted period of time, see that we don't have any predominant, famous isometric action RPG games in the 2000s until Titan Quest, precisely in 2006. And even so today, ask yourself this, people, is Titan Quest as known as it should be? Well, I think pretty much no. Hello, false, beautiful goddess. Okay, that's the third one. We are done. But we have some other quests to do in this area. Pretty much we just started this new area. So the journey was a hotkey HQ for the journal. We have this one then. Slave pieces in the blood. Okay, we have to find this specific mob there. So is Titan Quest as known as it should be even today? Well, I think no. I think definitely no, because Titan Quest should be considered the game that actually revived the genre in that period of 6 years since the year 2000 and the year 2006, pretty much, that it was released on. So, and see how influential it was, see how influential Titan Quest was, that the physics of this game feel exactly the same as in that game, from the weight of the animation, of the impact animations of the attacks, to the walk, to the pacing of the walking of the character, to the point and click weight of the mouse pointer on the enemies. It's exactly like Titan Quest. And you must be thinking, well, but that's the evidence. Well, it's not so evident, people. Nowadays, a lot of people don't even remember Titan Quest. But the other thing to take into account is that the physics of Diablo 3 are a modified version of Titan Quest. Because in reality, before Titan Quest, there was another game that I have to highlight that was called The Hand of God. Do you remember The Hand of God? It was an isometric action RPG. No, of course you don't remember The Hand of God, because very few people played it, because the physics were shitty, using the experimental NVIDIA fix engine physics. The same happened to Sacred 2. In the case of Sacred 2, it was a much better experiment. The experiment turned out to be much better. But you can see that the period of time of the early 2000s, the mid-2000s, and getting into the late 2000s was a very convoluted period of time for the physics, for the gameplay physics of the isometric action RPG genre. See, another difference, besides the 5 that I mentioned last time, with the MMORPG genre. The MMORPG genre didn't have this problem with the physics and the point-and-click system. Okay, so you don't remember The Hand of God. Very few people remember Titan Quest. How many people remember Fate, for example? That the remaster was announced some days, some weeks ago. I posted it over at Discord, over at my Discord server. Alright, that's the NPC that we are looking for. See why Quest Guidance was a good option, because it's telling me where they are. Do you remember Fate? How many people remember Fate? None. Almost no one remembers Fate, besides a few of us. So, indeed, see that Fate, The Hand of God, a lot of the Space Siege that we played on stream some years ago, that was another great example. All of those there was another one. It was Greed or something like that, but that one was from 2012. Crater, Shadows of Soulside. There are a lot of isometric action RPG games. There was another one, Loki. Loki was another one. See that all of those isometric action RPG games are not remembered because a lot of them weren't good because of this problem with the physics. Sacred 2, Titan Quest are exceptions in this period of time that fixed that problem. When I say problems with the physics, just so it's not that abstract, it means that the point and click system is not precise. That when I click on the enemy, For example, see that here it's quite precise because it's exactly like Titan Quest. See that when I click on the enemy, the character actually attacks because the physics, the hitbox physics of the creature, of the NPC, the entity has weight to it, what I have been mentioning. But in all of those games from the early 2000s that are unknown, they are unknown because they weren't good at fixing the problem of the physics that the transition from 2D with Diablo 2 to 3D in the late 2000s caused. Okay, so all of those, there was a period, basically as a summary, there was a period in the early 2000s and mid 2000s in which the physics of the point and click system of isometric action RPG games okay. In which the physics of the isometric action RPG games were terribly flawed. Okay, so they were terribly flawed, and as a direct consequence of that, perfect. And as a direct consequence of that, they are nowadays not remembered or whatever. They were not so. Oh wow, this one is even better. Then I guess I can. I can remove this one. Yeah, doesn't matter. Looks like I have more stuff to. Travel ration to the smugglers. Kinda. Well, then we'll see. Just loot this one. Increase attack power. Used up after each attack. Okay. Yeah, I remember. I need to learn how to use this thing. Let's begin with this one. Increases attack power. But do I use it on a weapon or what? Well, then we'll realize. But as you can see, there was a convoluted period of time. How does it end? Well, while we all agree that Diablo 3, flawed as it was, with the MMORPG element, with the shitty auction house that it had, with everything, it did revive a bit the spirit, the interest for the isometric action RPG genre. But if I had to be completely honest, people, well, the popularity could be given by a game with a big budget and a huge company like Blizzard behind it to revive the genre. I think the credit should be given to Titan Quest. Without a doubt, because Titan Quest is the one game responsible for fixing the problem with the physics. Finally, once and for all. Okay. With that said, people, the main idea is that after that convoluted period of time, Titan Quest fixes the physics of the point-and-click system in 3D isometric action RPG games in 2006. Then Diablo popularizes, let's say, the solution. Oh damn, I forgot to change the category, my bad. I got so caught up in that. Stupid category. I forgot to change the category. Fortunately, I realized it. There we go. That is the key. Sorry, I forgot to change the category from Thursday. There we go. Drakensang Online. There we go. I forgot to change the category from Thursday. I knew I was forgetting about something. No, we play Star Wars: The Old Republic on Thursdays. That is the thing. My bad, people. My bad. No, Star Wars: The Old Republic on Thursdays. Drakensang Online on Tuesdays. No, it's okay. Okay, we have another objective over there. No problem. See, that's why I knew I was forgetting about something. Let's get this one as well. So what is the key? After that convoluted period of time, in the early 2000s. Titan Quest arrives in 2006, and then Diablo 3, let's say, popularizes the 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 fixes to the 3D point and click system of Titan Quest to it. Okay, but it doesn't end there. It definitely doesn't end there. The main idea is that that Titan Quest not only fixes that problem for Diablo 3, but for a lot of other games. Among them, of course, Sacred 2 that I mentioned, but pretty much everything that you see beyond the 7th generation, just so you have an idea, the Xbox 360 and the PS3, basically. It fixes pretty much everything. Pretty much everything. As a huge epitome of the fixes that Titan Quest brought to the table, I would like to highlight definitely Path of Exile. Path of Exile, even if it tried to dethrone Diablo 3, and it did so, I think. Even if it tried to dethrone Diablo, the physics of Path of Exile are those of Titan Quest with the updated CryEngine that they used from Crysis. But the physics, the weight of the physics, people, think about that in the point and click system, in the context, in the framework of the point and click system, is that of Titan Quest, without a doubt. Without a doubt, it has the very physics of Titan Quest if you play Path of Exile. I played Path of Exile, the whole main campaign, and it's pretty much the same physics as Diablo 3, as Titan Quest. Path of Exile is the same as Titan Quest. Not Diablo 3 precisely. In Diablo 3 the physics are floaty. You can get through enemies in that sense. They do have a weight to them, but it's much lower. It's not as predominant. It's much lower. It's not as predominant as in Titan Quest, that you cannot get through enemies. How do you apply those essences? Is the question. Well, whatever. We have any more quests? Speak with Lord. Perfect. We're done with that one. Okay. Those are done. Bring. Seek the talking skeletal warrior in the Grovery Temple. Okay, then let's get over there. Quest guidance has been activated. Blah, blah, blah. Okay, let's go. So yes, people, as you can see, Titan Quest is a huge reference. It's the epitome of the isometric action RPG genre after the void that Diablo 2 left in those 8 years. Because think about it like that, people. Diablo 3 was released in 2008, and Diablo 2 had been previously released in the year 2000, in the 2000s. So it's a huge period of time, an entire generation in which there was a void for this genre that then, fortunately, somehow revived. In a way, it somehow revived nowadays. Nowadays it's much more popular, but it wouldn't be as fixed and pretty and popular as it is today without the contribution of Titan Quest. And precisely, in the case of Drakensang Online, it brings all of the aspects. It brings all of the aspects of it brings all of the aspects of Titan Quest in terms of the physics. And all modern 3D isometric action RPG games pretty much use that formula. So Titan Quest, very very important, quite important, without a doubt. Without a doubt, that's what we were looking for. So okay. Done. How about this one? Okay. We have one more to complete. So that's the first thing that I noticed in terms of the early game gameplay mechanics of Drakensang Online. That the physics, I see the same physics as in Titan Quest, and by extension in Path of Exile, for example. The physics are quite similar as in Path of Exile. In Path of Exile, the physics are even heavier. So it tries to perfectly mimic the feeling of Diablo 2 in that sense. That's why Path of Exile is so wait, what? Isn't this the... No, this one. Isn't this the base? Yeah, it's the base. Alright, then I finished all of them. That's the first thing that I immediately detect as I play this game in terms of the early gameplay mechanics. The second thing, why is it that I have two of those? Okay. Yeah, so far I'm using the fireball. I know. There we go. This one, come over here. No. See if the hostages are okay, whatever. Which one was it? I love how this game also, in terms of the ambience, feels quite similar to... Ah, it's a dungeon, okay. Then let me turn in all of the quests, so we get the experience. And then we get into the dungeon. This one? Wonderful, we can address a true problem, whatever. You? By Agathon's mercy, this helmet spoke, not the skeleton. Why? It's possessed. I fear that without proper burial rites, souls can become restless and wander aimlessly into nearby objects. Okay. I know of an ascension rite which will free the poor confused soul trapped in this helm and get it back to Agathon, and then fresh water form the ritual. Okay. Yeah. Excellent work, sir. You've taken an unnerving task without complaint and thereby given us a short respite, a chance to repair a few weapons and catch you. Well, thank you. It's no secret why the enemy in Slifmoor is such a dire threat. He's already dead. You can hack and slay and wound him as much as you please, but in the end he'll rise back up. It's the dark magic of the Nefertari. Ah, we have necromancers here at work, people. Have necromancers. We have necromancers doing this. And yet we are all standing against them. Yes, an all-out offensive. Repeatable quests. Okay, the symbol, they are dailies. Indicates that they are dailies. Okay. Arc that pig-headed priest to any other run away king here. No, it was where's the other one? Wait, I had another quest that I had to turn in. This one? Tell all about it. Ah, this one wasn't finished. My bad. This one is a daily, so no. Yeah, stop the daily. What about this one? No, where is it? This one? Okay, there we go. Perfect. To Anselm. Anselm? Yeah. This one? Let's see what you have. No. And then it's just dailies. Hang on a second, people. Now I return. There we go. Sorry. Sorry, I had to. something fell from a rack there in my room. Okay, no worries. Okay, here we go. Did I update? Perfect. Perfect. There we go. Okay, people. So that's the first talking point that I wanted to highlight today. The physics and the story of Drakensang and the story of Titan Quest and the comparison of how it influences Drakensang Online in this case, right? So yeah, I wanted to highlight those aspects, of Smuggler's Greed, not for sale. Well, whatever. Okay, and then I should buy potions, right? One, just in case. Oh. That seemed to work. Lasting healing potion. Common potion consumed when used. And then why is it that it has that lasting? And this one is instant. Ah, okay. I bet there will be a potion that is not consumed on use. Some shit like that. Eventually. Okay, there we go. Let's not worry about those things now. Let's not worry about those things now. Okay, then we will do a run of Titan Quest eventually, so you can see what I mean with the weight of the physics and everything. Because well, you can Google gameplay of Titan Quest, but it's not the same without me explaining it as I play it. I forgot about the conversation. All right, it's this one. Another worldview. Ark, that pit-headed priest? Do you by any chance know old Randall? We ran into each other in Kings Hill. He was my teacher at priest school until I threw him out for knowing too much. Well, perhaps you can help me. I found a clue in the Forgotten Wood, and if my research is correct, then there was an active Nefertari cult here long ago. Can you go there and see if there are any records they left behind? Yeah, sure. Okay, but we had another one. We had another one, which was... we had this one, that is the dungeon. We have this one, but there was another one. No, not that one. The one with the Nefertari calls or whatever. Well, whatever. Fuck it. This one. This one. This one. This one. Save their souls. That one. Okay. Second talking point, people. Second talking point that I wanted to comment today regarding the gameplay mechanics as we played. Not only the physics, but the pacing and the speed of the ability of the skill activation in this game is exactly like Titan Quest. Like in Titan Quest, I use a one-hit poison build with my basic attacks. I just boost my basic attacks, pretty much. And while here in Drakensang, it's way too early to tell because I still have to unlock the rest of the abilities. For example, I see that there's one there, and maybe you have to end up using the different abilities. There it is. The objective. The pacing is just like in Titan Quest. That's another thing. Well, in that sense, we can trace that element all the way back to Diablo 2, in that sense. We can trace that element all the way back, in that sense. By that element, I mean the fact that you can endlessly activate abilities without cooldowns in this game. For example, you could see that in Sacred 2, since it was an offline isometric MMORPG, all of the abilities had cooldowns, so it matter protection. Okay, we need one more, right? There was one more. There we go. It's going back, right? It implies going back, and then we have to go back and do the dungeon. Okay. The horse there. What's this ability? This is new. I wonder what happens when you... What's this one? Frost Wind. Oh, would you look at that? Yeah, the physics of that are a bit shitty compared to this one. What about that? That one looks good. Okay. What about this one? But this one has a delay. It's terrible and it consumes a lot of mana. It's way too slow. The teleport should be there, and well, this one. Yeah, pretty much like that. Like that. Oh, we have two more objectives there. Could it be? Yeah. But first, let me get into that dungeon that I mentioned previously. So the idea is that the pacing of the cooldowns, another element that I mentioned to classify this game as an isometric action RPG and not an MMORPG, because for example Sacred 2 that I classified as an isometric offline MMORPG, for example all of the abilities had cooldowns. It's terrible. The peasantry hereabouts endanger their souls, etc. Hope. To help you complete a quest, okay. No, I got the sword, but not the other ones. Where's the other one? I need to get another one. Recover the stolen sword. Where was the other one? This one. Dungeon. Let's do dungeon. Let's do the dungeon first. Then we return back to the woods. So pretty much the idea is that the pacing of the cooldowns in this game is also influenced all the way back from Diablo 2 as well. So another element of the isometric action RPG genre, contrary to the MMORPG genre, for example, and there we go. All right, looks like the place is quite massive. Quite massive indeed. Okay, I think this is a rehash of the previous dungeon, in the previous level. So in that sense, oh right, I forgot I had that one. Now, let's try that new ability. Nice, it did work. Now I have a reason to use my right mouse button. Okay. Ah, the objective was over there, probably that boss that I killed. Okay, here. That's it. Okay. That was simple. That was easy. There, I'll return. Okay. Okay. What else do I have? Let's just stick to the main quest, people. No, well, this one I already recovered that thing, so yeah. Anyways, they're all in the same area. Let's mount up. Go over there. So as a second talking point, the pacing of the cooldowns is exactly as fast as in Diablo 2 and Titan Quest. So another great element and example of how the game belongs to the isometric action RPG genre. No, it's not complete. I also need this shit. One thing that I love is that the soundtrack kicks in. It kicks in exactly as you as you enter combat. It's absolutely amazing. Troll Canyon. It kicks in exactly as you enter combat, so perfect. Magnificent. Okay. Oh! Ah, the map goes on! Oh, the game might be bigger than I thought. Okay. Go back. Alright, then we need to kill the roots there. Okay. What? Wait, what? Slave... Rubbish root creatures. What? Oh. Wait, what? Ah, it's... I think it has an order. It goes in order. There we go. I bet we can complete that quest easily with our horse. What? Quest guidance is fucked there. Slay for creatures. But where? Inside of the dungeon. I see 4 objectives there. I see 4 objectives there. I don't... Yeah, it has to be the stupid dungeon. Okay, yeah. We have 2 quests in this dungeon. Then, let's go. So people, that's pretty much the idea. The pacing of the cooldowns, not only the weight of the physics. Alright, it's this one, okay, yeah. Here? Yeah, here we go. That one's. Yeah, perfect, got it. Perfect, perfect. Perfect. That one. That one. Yes, I don't like using shift in a lot of cases. Hey, Flying Energies, how's it going? How's it going? Yes, I am progressing through Drakensang online, and it's quite huge. It's quite huge. I've seen. Good, yeah, discovering everything that it has to offer. For example, these essences, I have no idea how to use them. I have no idea how to use them. They apparently increase damage after each attack. Yeah, I'm playing this one on Tuesdays and then my other game on Thursdays. So yeah. I was as for others, I wanted to analyze the Incredible Adventures of Van Helsing, another isometric action RPG. Double left click. Ah, thank you. Then they are applied there and they are consumed for each attack. Like well. Two of them consumed for each attack in that case. Okay, okay. Okay. Yeah, they were dropping all around the place. Yeah, and next to green you can put other essences too. Like this one next to green. Like there. Any kind of potion, tonic, elixir, or physic. Yeah, no, here. Okay, so when this one is consumed, I presume it goes straight to the other one. Okay, they queue up. Then the essence is on left side on you use. Yeah, okay. Okay, okay. Then when that one is, yeah, okay. When that one is consumed, the other, it goes straight to the other one. You know, I'm trying to free up inventory space. So, yes. Thank you from the bottom of my heart. I was mentioning that a lot of elements from this game are taken from Titan Quest, for example, uh, and well, then Path of Exile inherited all of these. Let's say Diablo 2 3D um, heirlooms. Let's say pretty much Titan, the Path of Exile then concentrated all of the elements that all of the games from the late 2000s accumulated in that sense. So yeah, that's why I played Path of Exile completely, one run, and it reminded me of Titan Quest, and it also reminds me of this game. Like the physics were exactly the same as the ones in Titan Quest. So I was commenting how important the contribution of Titan Quest was for the gameplay physics in 3D isometric action RPG games. Precisely that void that Diablo 2 left because it was in 2D, but then when the genre had to do the transition to 3D, then it was a void that only Titan Quest could fill, and then fix the physics of 3D isometric action RPG games. So in that sense, Drakensang Online feels quite similar from the pacing of the cooldowns and the weight of the physics to Titan Quest without a doubt, as one example. And I will cite that one because it's alright, that was it. Was this one? There we go. Nice. Okay, no. That's because those are the other dailies. We had this one as well. Done. And thanks to your devotion, duty, and your compassion, Mario here in old style, I shall prepare to the holy guidance ritual and put this unknown soul to rest at last. Okay. It was this one? No, this one. Okay. Hostage is there. Okay. Chapter 6. There we go, people. See? There we go. And I had one more here that I had to turn in. No. The merchant was still okay, perfect. So as a third talking point, people, besides the pacing of the cooldowns and the weight of the physics of Titan Quest that make this game belong to the isometric action RPG genre, besides those elements, alright, this one. Use the power of the Alliance Ring to smash an Nefertari statue in the western part of the Globery. Okay, let's go. I have my horse. Okay, perfect. Besides those two elements, I wanted to highlight more. I wanted to highlight more in terms of the gameplay mechanics. The skill tree that we haven't explored yet, but we'll have to do so sooner than later. I still haven't had the need to do so, but still, the skill tree in this game, it is exactly like in Titan Quest. Even the structure of the elemental damage, and if it's like Titan Quest, then this is a general skill point experience bar, and it blocks the usage of the abilities if you don't fill this bar first. That's how Titan Quest works, pretty much. If it works like that, then also the skill tree is exactly like Titan Quest. So there you can see, not only because when I saw the structure of the skill tree with those with that bar to fill over at the left corner of it, when I saw it, I immediately thought it's Titan Quest. That's Titan Quest, and if it is like that, then I'll test it. Maybe we can test it by the end of the stream. It's exactly like Titan Quest, but there you can see the huge influence that it had, not only with the weight of the physics, fixing the point and click 3D combat system in the isometric action RPG genre, not only the pacing of the cooldowns inherited from Diablo 2, but you can also see that the structure of modern skill trees in isometric action RPG games is either determined by Titan Quest or by Path of Exile in that sense, because the Diablo formula is just the same as Diablo 2. It's pretty much a classic skill tree from an MMORPG. In that sense, we have different variants of that. But when I saw the skill tree precisely, in fact, I will test it now. I cannot fuck it up. How much can I fuck it up? If it's like Titan Quest, then you can increase this one. Otherwise, it has level caps, I think. Could it be? You start from top to bottom. So far out of all of these ones, the one that I like is the Fireball. So I just increase it there. I wonder what this one might be. It's just the experience bar, but this, I bet this could it be filled or something? We'll see, people. But yeah, in Titan Quest, basically you feel this, and then the skill tree is exactly the same. When I say exactly the same, look for a screenshot online. It's just XP bar. Ah, darn it. Then why do they have this structure? Because it's just like Titan Quest, huh? It's like energy. It's exactly, it's just experience bar, so it's not filled. Okay, so it has a difference with Titan Quest. In Titan Quest, you have to fill this exact bar, but when I say this exact bar, it's this exact bar, and that unlocks the skill tree. So it's more straightforward. No idea. Maybe a mistake. No. I was just commenting that it's exactly the same. Huh? Look for any screenshot online, and the the layout of the skill tree is exactly like Titan Quest. The only difference would be that they don't use the. In Titan Quest, this bar is filled with green, and that unlocks the different abilities. Here, I can see that I can spend the points directly. Ah, but this one is a different one. Okay. Okay. Interesting. This one is level 30. Probably, yeah, level 30. And this one, Meteor. Aha. I should have probably invested the points there. Well, doesn't matter. Slow debuff. Oh, this one could be useful. Just to try that one. Oh, wait. Well, now it should be much more powerful. Yeah, definitely scaling in one blow. I think I went a bit overboard. Yep. I think I went a bit overboard with that. Yeah, he's killing them in one blow. Okay, so the skill tree works directly investing the points, and they are unlocked at levels. There's no coordinated. There is no coordinated experience system to go along with it. You directly get the abilities, and that's it. All right, all right. Quite interesting. Quite interesting. And it just has four. It has the 4 elemental damage types that some bosses are weak or strong against it. Talent points 12. Yeah, pretty much that's it. And what about this one? Preset 2. Ah, they are just presets. Okay. Okay, so this is the whole skill tree. Then I bet it said that it unlocked some things here for groups and everything. Okay. Ah, no, wait. The wisdom talent tree is unlocked at character level 30. Ah, it may have a second skill tree there hidden. Okay, let's not worry about that for now, people. Then we'll dedicate a stream to analyze the structure of the skill tree and everything. But just so you can see my point of why, in terms of the genre classification, this is an isometric action RPG and not an MMORPG, because of the 5 talking points that I mentioned last time, among them the weight of the physics and the pacing of the cooldowns, and the source of the difficulty, and the 5 talking points that we mentioned last time. I'm not gonna repeat them, but I will emphasize that the influence of those physics is derived from Titan Quest, a game that nowadays not a lot of people remember, but as I mentioned at the beginning, think about all of the forgotten isometric action RPG games. For example, if I name The Hand of God, or Loki, they are all forgotten isometric action RPG games that pretty much no one remembers nowadays. I even haven't played the Loki or the Hand of God, but I know that they existed. In all of those games, the physics, in terms of the isometric action RPG genre, they were incredibly flawed. Right? See how important the weight of the physics that Titan Quest fixed in 2006 has been, because the Hand of God, Loki, those games had terrible physics because they were trying to do the transition from the void of 2D isometric action RPG gameplay combat from the 2D isometric action RPG combat system that Diablo 2 had, and it left a void, without a doubt, in the late 2000s, in the mid 2000s, and in the early 2000s, pretty much, or the whole 2000s, Diablo 2, because it was in 2D, and the genre had to make a slow transition to 3D. And the point and click in those games, the point and click system, this thing that you nowadays take for granted, that we all take for granted, like in Diablo 3, 4, Drakensang Online, Grim Dawn, in Path of Exile, in all of the modern isometric action RPG games, this snappy and fast point-and-click system, it was extremely flawed back in the mid and late 2000s. Why? Because the physics of 3D engines weren't properly adapted for a 3D game in that sense. Hang on a second, I don't want to get killed. The physics were designed of that genre for 2D, for Nox, for Diablo 2, for the huge amount of South Korean MMORPGs that were released. Lineage 2, Lineage 1. Lineage 1 was in 2D, the second one was in 3D. Lineage, hello, Big, Big, thank you for being my heart. Thank you from the bottom of my heart. Sorry about that, is because of I have to downsample my multi-channeled audio I have to down mix it to 2 channels. There it is. That's why you heard that weird sound. Twitch doesn't support Multi-channel sound streaming. Hello, be welcome, be welcome. Thank you for visiting my stream and being the 40th follower of the channel. Thank you from the bottom of my heart. I always appreciate it. I analyze games here. I analyze crazy stuff with metaphysical analysis. I analyze crazy stuff like the relationship between the level design and the gameplay mechanics. For example, I did the genre classification of Drakensang in the previous stream. I spotted 5 elements and 5 talking points in 2 hours, very in depth, of why I classify this game as an isometric action RPG instead of an MMORPG, dissecting the elements. I do crazy stuff like that. Some people love it, some people hate it. Generally, game developers love it, like the ones that have visited my stream throughout the years, and yes, pretty much. That's crazy. Yes, indeed. I analyze all of those things. You have examples here. I have a bottle on the channel of the final analysis of Sacred 2, a game that I highly recommend you if you like Drakensang Online. That I did a 4 hour analysis on that one. I analyzed the games like one, let's say, topic per stream, and then after 10 days of gameplay, 15 or 14 in the case of Sacred 2, but it was a massive game, I do the final analysis, in which I condense all of the elements that I have spotted. I generally start with the genre classification, then I go through the gameplay mechanics, the level design, the usage of potions. Are you playing the Drakensang Online for the first time? Yes, yes, yes. A viewer of the channel asked me to a friend of the channel. I hate to whoop you. The friend of the channel asked me that he played the game a lot. The same goes for Flying Energies here. He's a famous streamer of Drakensang Online. And yes, and District, who is another friend of the channel, he recommended me to. He asked me to do a review of the game. Like I was doing a review of another game, and he asked me to play the game and with my analysis system. Pretty much, that's what I do. If whenever a Discord member or any viewer of the stream, any person who likes my analysis of other games and maybe they want me to analyze their favorite game, they ask me to do so. I also have to do was not anymore. Well, don't say that, Flying Energy. Don't say that. The guy knows all of it. I watched a stream of him and he knows everything about this game. He knows everything about this game. He's like, I could be regarded as the, well, not the king, working night shift today, so I am in for a real, for a treat. Yeah, well, you're working night shift. Well, yeah, I generally stream in the time zone of the America. Don't listen to me. He's very humble and a great person, and he doesn't want. He's like the king of Drakensang Online, just like I could be regarded as the king of Star Wars: The Old Republic. It's like that. All right. Yeah, well, in my case, I stream in the time zone of the Americas, but I am from Argentina. I'm also Italian. I have Italian citizenship. So, and Argentina is the most, let's say, European-like country of the Americas. So, culturally, and yeah, because of that, I also have no problem, like, relating to half of my viewers are European, half of my viewers are American, from the United States. You are still up there, not many stream. Either we're replying to Flying Energy. Yeah, I bet you know him. Yeah, I'm playing it for the first time. I bet you know him. I bet you know him. He must be the best player. I don't know, Flying Energy. He must be the top one player with all of the things I saw you do. There we go. Okay, we have one more. this one. So yes, it's my first time playing in my case, and I analyze I will analyze the game. The main story I'm not going to do. So what's the plan? Level up to 100 by doing missions, finish the main story, analyze the main story, and do the final analysis of the game once I've analyzed all of the aspects. Generally, my streams uh, uh, involve analyzing one aspect of the gameplay, of the mechanics of the game, from the level design to the grandeur to the story to, for example, the usage of potions and the and its influence in the game on the gameplay mechanics, the everything, the psychological impact of the economic system, the influence of the economic system on the gameplay mechanics. For example, in Sacred 2, as a reference, when you die, there's an internal clock system that is reset, that causes a negative proportion of the economic system of the game, because the potions get more expensive to get because you don't loot enough money. Crazy stuff like that. So yes, once I analyze all of the aspects, one per stream, until I finish the main story. When I finish the main story, I will get to my final analysis, analyzing the gameplay, reviewing the level design, the story of the game, the impact of the soundtrack. Will do my best not to spoil anything. I promise. Nah, no problem. No problem. No problem. No problem about. No problem about that. No problem about that. In that sense, for example, I bet the Flying Energies and District know the story by heart, and no. Flying Energies laughs. No problem, no problem. It's not the core aspect of the game. For example, when the developer of Dungeons and Dragons Dragon Shard visited my stream that I analyzed that game, he mentioned the gameplay mechanics. He was the main enemy NPC designer of that game, and he mentioned that the core element that he had designed precisely was how the patterns of the enemies and everything, for example, the pathfinding that we talked about, and those are the core elements. I do include a review of the story and the soundtrack and the ambience. For example, I've been highlighting that in this game, the soundtrack kicks in exactly as you enter combat, and I loved that aspect, because in a lot of games, for example in World of Warcraft, you farm enemies without soundtrack. That's why a lot of people use their own custom soundtrack, and that's a deficiency, for example, that I analyze. For example, I love that in this game the soundtrack kicks in exactly as you enter combat. Soundtrack 10 out of 10, especially the old one. They changed it. But for example, I also analyzed I also, first, when I start any review, I look at the story, at the history, at the history of the studio behind the game, that it was sold to big, that it absorbed, for example, the developers of Drakensang Online, big big games or something like that. It absorbed another one called Radon Labs, which was the original developer of Drakensang 1. That is the game that I played before this one, hence why. And pretty much because of that, it absorbed Radon Labs, but it didn't get the license of the tabletop game. You know that Drakensang started as a tabletop game. It's a German version of Dungeons and Dragons. It wasn't an isometric action RPG. This game is an isometric action RPG because big games, pretty much GmbH, something like that, the German company, couldn't absorb Radon Labs, which has the rights to the tabletop game Drakensang. Big point. Well, we read it in the first stream, pretty much. Yes, but it's not anymore since 2020. Well, then it was absorbed by the Chinese company that absorbed big games GmbH. altogether, but still doesn't have the license of the tabletop game. The tabletop game Drakensang, the German version of Dungeons and Dragons, is still independent. Yeah, you listen in school. You listen in school. Big point. It was Big Point or something like that. Big Games. No, or Big Point that it doesn't have the music. Yeah, that is not the tabletop game. The license is still clear. Yeah, you know, Flying Energies, my very first viewer was from New Zealand, some 3 years ago, and he also mentioned, wait, did you study the history of the game before playing? No, I show it on stream, that's the thing. I show it on the first stream of the game. Before starting playing, I uh, I take a look at the history of the game before starting playing, because they are like cases, they are like autopsies. I do like a dissecting of how the game, what was the history of the company behind it. Yeah, no, I don't study the history. I show it live on stream. The first stream of each analysis. These are analysis. First day of analysis is the history of the studio behind the game. Second one is the genre classification. Third was also the genre classification in depth, and now third day the pretty much the gameplay mechanics. I start taking a look at the gameplay mechanics. I do it slowly, one topic per stream. It's one topic per stream until the final analysis that condenses them all. The first one is always the history of the game studio before starting play. Got you. It's pretty much like that. It's very structured stream in that sense, and yes, it's one topic per stream, like that. But I always start with the history to know what, because one thing that game reviewers never pay attention to is the effort. It's the effort that a lot of these companies put behind the games, and I don't like that. That they don't care at all about. Let's continue with that one. That they don't care at all about the effort. For example, as I said, in the case of this game that you all love so much, it started with Radon Labs, a German company. I think it was in Berlin, somewhere over there, in Germany, that developed Drakensang 1. That developed Drakensang 1, that is the game that I analyzed and played right before this one. Hamburg, that one. In Hamburg. That one. Thank you, Flying Energies. In Hamburg. I read it that day, pretty much. So, before Drakensang Online came to be, I also take a look at the inherited elements from different genres. For example, Diablo 3 was released back in 2008, right? Hamburg, yes, indeed. One of the main technological hubs of Germany, precisely. One of the main technological hubs, is no surprise of that. There we go. Quest guidance system. I need to activate this one. For example, I take a look at the inherited elements. For example, I mentioned in the previous stream that the weight of the physics in this game was one of the genre-defining elements. The weight of the physics. Why? Because even a stupid and subtle element like that one, for example, see that I cannot get through the mob here. See that that it has weight to it, the NPC. And I know that it may look like a stupid, subtle element, but I explained in the previous stream in the genre classification that one I think you still have it. Besides other 4 talking points, I did 5 talking points as to why I classified the game as an isometric action RPG and not an MMORPG. That the weight of the physics of the NPCs is a direct source, a direct change in the source of the difficulty. For example, why? Because if you think about it, in World of Warcraft, you can get through enemies. You can get through enemies because the source of the difficulty of the game, of the gameplay mechanics, of the abstract complexity of the gameplay mechanics, the source of the difficulty is the raw input damage caused by the mobs, for example. Among others, for example, I mentioned the pacing of the cooldowns of the abilities that in MMORPGs like World of Warcraft, all of the abilities have a cooldown, while in isometric action RPG games, the abilities are instant, like I can do this. I can just keep this casting and casting endlessly. That's not something you see in MMORPGs. For example, and the source of the difficulty is one of the genre-defining elements that I mentioned on Tuesday of last week. On Tuesday, precisely because due to the fact that this game inherits the weight of the physics of a specifically Titan Quest that I was commenting earlier today, 2 hours ago. Sorry, an hour ago. Precisely, the weight of the enemies, the fact that you cannot get through them, the weight of the physics, causes you to be surrounded and killed. The source of the difficulty derived from that, not from the raw input damage, that could be a complementary element as well. But see that here, see that there's a clipping when you get extremely close to enemies, and you get surrounded and killed. That's an influence of the level design on the gameplay mechanics, and those are all things that reviewers, the so-called professional gaming press, they don't pay attention to. That's the purpose of my channel, pretty much. To pay attention to all of the elements and that they just don't care about. I also read the reviews in the first stream, besides the history of the studio behind the case of Autopsy. And because of that, I measure the degree of efficiency in the influence of the level design on the gameplay mechanics. For example, in that sense. So yes, pretty much. The fact that you can get surrounded and killed causes a very organic and natural source of difficulty. It's a degree of efficiency of the influence of the level design on the gameplay mechanics. For example, just as one of the things that you may see that I constantly mention as something to pay attention to. For example, in the final analysis of Havencast Rise of the Mage, that is another isometric action RPG that I analyzed long ago. The level designer of that game precisely thanked me for the analysis, because no one ever paid attention to the level design. For example, how narrow I highlighted how narrow the corridors were in that game, just like in this one in the dungeons, so that the player doesn't have a lot of room to maneuver and cast the spells. See how interesting it is. And I have a huge passion for all of those elements, because they are extremely subtle. And they require a lot of effort by the developers to actually create them, and a lot of reviewers over at Metacritic or Steam or whatever ignore them. And that's why I do my crazy metaphysical in-depth reviews. There's also a philosophical part of them with metaphysics, but that's the complex part of it that then from time to time I repeat whenever the opportunity arises. There's also a metaphysical, a philosophical, a metaphysical philosophy to it as well, regarding how to consider the existence of metaphysical entities, of things in the plane of time and space. There's also another aspect to it. That's a crazy aspect of the reviews, let's say. But well, regarding the gameplay mechanics precisely of Drakensang Online, the direct influence of Titan Quest that I have been mentioning, people, very important, because a lot of people forget about the period of time of the late 2000s, as I was mentioning, in which the transition from 2D to 3D in this genre was quite convoluted. It was quite convoluted. Because after the void left behind by, as I've said, by Diablo 2, that was in 2D, of course, we had a lot of experiments that I mentioned: the Hand of God, Loki, well, Crater was a bit more Space Siege, the forgotten successor of Dungeon Siege, Space Siege, that tried to be an isometric action RPG rather than a party-based game. Space Siege, that I also played long ago. I think 2-3 years ago. I think I played that one. All of them have point-and-click control problems. So nowadays, I think we don't give enough credit to Titan Quest, because if you think about it, it fixed 3D physics for isometric action RPG games, and as a direct consequence, it fixed the point-and-click system. Before Titan Quest, honestly, the point-and-click system in this genre, after the transition from 2D to 3D after Diablo 2 was gone, let's say, after its popularity had, well, it never disappeared, the popularity, but after the transition to 3D was much more popular, after it was much more popular, like that. Then I grab this one. Hey, we got a legendary one. Extraordinary. Quartz crystal. Ah, okay. Oh, that's a new slot. Weapon adornment. Okay. Well, we finally completed our gear. Look at that, people. After that transition to 3D, the huge problem was that all of these games that I'm mentioning, you know why you don't remember them? Fate, for example, that you got the remaster. I highly recommend you Fate. Fate Reawakened, a remaster that I left over at Discord. The Fate Reawakened is the predecessor of Torchlight, just so you have a reference. That was recently remastered, fortunately, but it was forgotten for a lot of time. It was forgotten for a lot of time. The Fate series, Fate 1, 2, 3, 4, there were 4 entries, and barely none knows about them. And that one, for example, had proper point-and-click physics, just like Titan Quest, but it was an exception. The Hand of God, Loki, many other forgotten isometric action RPG games from the early 2000s have flawed point-and-click systems. That's why they are forgotten. That's why none of us remember them. Sorry. And that's why even Titan Quest is not as popular as it should be nowadays, because of that void left behind by Diablo 2 in the transition to 3D isometric action RPG. Okay, that's for the second talking point regarding the gameplay, the first impressions in terms of the gameplay mechanics of Drakensang Online. The first point that I mentioned as well was the pacing of the cooldowns. Okay, then I wanted to get into the second topic of today, which is the first impressions and the first comparisons in terms of the level design. And this is the moment in which the MMORPG aspect of it comes into play. And it blurs the line between the genre classification. The very level design of this game. Ah, it was here. Perfect. I have to destroy 15 of them. Okay, let me mount up. The level design of this game plays a huge role. First, as I always mention, precisely, I cover the gameplay first, the same weight physics as Titan Quest, and the pacing of Titan Quest of the late 2000s isometric action RPG games instead of Diablo 3. Diablo 3 was a huge paradigm shift, I think, for the worst, for the worst, without a doubt. because it made the physics floaty in terms of the gameplay mechanics. You can get through enemies with several abilities. The physics are floaty, hack and slashy, and faster. And that distorted, Diablo 3 distorted the formula that Titan Quest had created, fixing 3D the 3D point and click physics and combat system in isometric action RPG games. Okay. But it also affected the level design. Because the paradigm in Diablo 2, was quite different. And the dungeons played a role. That precisely leads me to the topic I highlight in every game: the influence of the level design on the gameplay mechanics. Diablo 2. Think about Diablo 2, people. I bet most, if not all of us, have played Diablo 2. Think of it. Hey, they are taking damage there. There we go. Let's slow them down like that. There we go. Think about Diablo 2. Think about Avencast Rise of the Mage as well, another great example of the ones that I commented. Haven't played the Masterpiece in a bit. Well, have you tried the Median XL mod? Mr. Sorry, one sec. Mr. Pakiviji, welcome to the chat, by the way. Have you played the Median XL mod? It will turn it... Nope, you have to do it because it will be much more similar to Path of Exile. It will give you endless content. That's how I play it. Nope, I highly recommend you the Median XL mod. Then you also have Path of Diablo. But it will modernize the game, so it will be like Path of Exile. I highly recommend you the Median XL mod. It will give you... Well, it will be endless. I don't know if I'm doing you a favor or causing an addiction in that sense. But in that sense, Diablo 2, the original release, to be honest, I think the only Diablo I played was 1 or 2. Some potato graphics. It also fixes was fired though, I presume. Diablo 2, well, yes, I originally played the original release, but then the Median XL mod, when I tried it, you just won't be able to go back. It doesn't, it expands the skill trees as well. It brings the, let's say, quality of life improvements of a modern isometric action RPG game, but it keeps the essence of Diablo 2. In that sense, Path of Diablo makes it the most similar to to Path of Exile. But Median XL, it's a more prudent mod. It's a bit more of a safe mod, but it also expands a lot. Yes. It still expands the skill trees. It will fix all of the graphics issues that the original release had. It will give you a lot of content. It will fix the cinematics. I know it's a secondary element regarding the core gameplay experience, but still, it will fix pretty much everything, and it will give you endless hours of content. I recommend you Median XL. Then if you like Path of Exile, except you specifically love Path of Exile, I played the Path of Exile once. I did one completion, and I also liked it, but I wanted to keep the essence of Diablo 2 intact. So Median XL, but if you love Path of Exile, you can go Path of Diablo in that sense. But still, I have to go back, right? I can go back. Perfect. So yes, I highly recommend it to you, the Median XL mod, because it will give you You won't be able to go back. As I was mentioning precisely, I analyze games here on the channel, and precisely I was mentioning that Diablo 2, in terms of the influence of the level design on the gameplay mechanics, had much more narrow dungeons. Same goes for Titan Quest when compared to the paradigm shift, let's say, that Diablo 3 introduced. So you can see, all right, gonna look into it. I can't tell you that you won't regret it. I didn't regret it, at least. I can tell you that. I can tell you that much. And for Torchlight 2, the synergies mod. The synergies mod for Torchlight 2 will make it endless. It makes the games like uh, it adds the quality of life improvements of a modern isometric action RPG, and I always look for those that don't really change the essence. Like, for example, Path of Diablo um, is like that. It's like a Path of Exile. It's like Path of Exile in that sense. So yeah, that way, for example, what I do is I have the remastered version that that Blizzard released for the base core experience, the remastered version, the resurrected version, and then the original with Media and Excel. So when I want the very original experience with better graphics, resurrected. And when I want the crazy, amazing experience of Media and Excel with all of the whistles and everything, Media and Excel. Media and Excel, and as another option, Path of Diablo.